And welcome back to teleSUR English. We go now to Venezuela again to follow the process. This is an encounter with the diplomatic body that is currently taking place. We're listening to Delcy Rodriguez, Vice President. Let's listen to what the Vice President is saying. She's talking about the elections on July 28th. There's a lot to tell. There's a lot to clarify. We are seeing an electoral process where our candidate, re-elected President Nicolás Maduro, has carried out a campaign filled with joy, even in conditions Let's recall that we're looking at images from Delcy Rodriguez, Executive Vice President of Venezuela. She is giving her account at this encounter with the diplomatic body. She's highlighting the need for all foreign powers to recognize the country's sovereignty after the election process of July 28th. There were 10 candidates. One of them, and they wanted to give an account. They wanted to give an account on the situation left so far of all political powers in Venezuela. Some of the participants of the election presented themselves before the electoral power, and some of them have also signed the agreement that had as name Agreement of Acknowledgement of the Results of the Election, the election of 2024. The Vice President of Venezuela is now showing the account of the CNE, and he is highlighting that one of the presidential candidates that did not sign the agreement to recognize, to acknowledge, he did not acknowledge the agreement.
You are participating in an electoral contest. It is logical that you have an agreement in front of the competent organ, in which, in the case of Venezuela, it is one of the 5 powers stipulated in the Constitution of the Bolivarian Republic. The representative of the far-right wing, Edmundo González, he was there. He was absent on June 20. Then, on July 18, just a month later, the campaign command of the far-right representation on July 18 at 10 a.m. assured that they want to recognize the results of the Electoral Council, but they are on tally sheets. This statement is fundamental to understand what is happening right now. From that time, they were planning not to recognize the results, the bulletin of results that the electoral power would give. They would recognize just their own tally sheets, and in the Venezuelan right, never in life it has been the source of proclamation of these kind of actions. They already said it on July 18. We won't recognize the results of the Electoral Council, but our own tally sheets. The tally sheets have another sense and another value, but they began with the history, the fraud they were preparing with the theme of the tally sheets. Then on July 26, they appeared. The representative of the far-right wing, and he created a website in which he posted the alleged results of the Venezuelan elections. On July 27, they registered a website under a UK company registration, and so each step is demonstrating that they have never had the intention and the respect or the respect to the electoral power. So on July 27, they registered the website under the sponsorship of a UK company, and there they were going to post their results, their own results, not the results of the Electoral Council. So these are functions that are not of them. That's why President Nicolás Maduro has said that this is the version Guaidó 2.0, that from the outside do things better, but they didn't do it very well. The orders received by Washington, because from there it was planned this plan. They gave the orders again. They are lackeys, they are puppets, executioners. Did it again, but very bad, in a bad manner. And that's what we are going to see. We are going to have an overview of what it was, of what the tally sheets were. But before, I wanted to refer to some statements of Mr. Edmundo González Urrutia on the day of the election. I am gonna cite, I open quotation, "We will expect results. However, we have our own methodologies and mechanism to know the advance of the electoral process. We will wait if they disclose it. If not, we will have the opportunity to do it." And why the National Electoral Council couldn't disclose that? If it weren't for that cyber attack, that massive cyber attack that we received in the transmission, an unprecedented 30 million attacks, cyber attacks per minute. And so there are some who self-proclaimed the authors of these attacks, of the public powers of Venezuela, of the Bank of Venezuela. Everybody attacked. They have been threatening authorities, popular leaders, threatened to death. And they, with their fresh faces, they assume that we have, they said, we have attacked Venezuela. And the Ministry X is being under attack, and that was the plan as it was denounced by President Nicolás Maduro, to stop the process of transmission, for not to having official results, and they publishing the fraudulent results and the violent riots on the streets. That's what we have been facing. But fortunately, the National Electoral Council could complete its totalization process and transmit and have its totalization and proclaiming bulletin. Despite we have been under attacks, under cyber attacks, because the routers of transmission have been under attack, and if not, you can look for those accountables that every day they have been just boasting about attacking Venezuela. There you see the day of elections. How can we see the images from all these cyber attacks without precedence? There you see the graph, 30 million attacks per minute, unprecedented attacks. But Mr. Elon Musk, not being happy with the coup that he wanted to lead in Venezuela, who failed, he said that he's going to promote the civil war in the UK, favoring the far-right messages in the United Kingdom against migrants who have been residing in that territory. Is the dictatorship of social media that intends to substitute the will of the people, the will of governments elected by their citizens. The only dictatorship is that of social media, the dictatorship of algorithm, the dictatorship of big concentrations of capitals, of those tech technologies that are in front to promote, to boost insurgencies, uprisings, coup d'etats, fascist attacks. The countries that we are being respectful about the international legality, we have to open a case of profound reflections of those big menaces that the humanity has been living. We have been under climate crisis and under these oligarchy powers that constitute that causes massive violence. There we see how Israel has been using WhatsApp to kill massively leaders of Palestinians in Gaza and Palestinians in Gaza. It has become a truthful instrument against the peoples. First, occupying the space of mind, of awareness, altering the cognitive processes, and disrupting the processes of feelings, of human feelings, generating discomfort, terror, promoting death and violence. That was recognized by the representatives of these social networks before the US Congress, that the algorithm favored death over love, hate over violence. And so I just I announced something to reflect about, something to mull over. It is a global reflection because they not only wanted to apply this in Venezuela in a violently way, giving a blow on the public powers of Venezuela. And I just give an overview of how the far-right candidate Edmundo Gonzalez said he wanted to recognize results, and then he didn't present himself at the Supreme Court of Justice. And on July 29th, the far-right candidate who promoted violence, and he's accountable of those deaths by violent acts, as he called on those violent acts as well as his accomplice, and he promotes in that website they will find tally sheets with the results. They are their own tally sheets. By the way, on the electoral map published, they mutilate, they eliminate the Essequibo that is of Venezuela, because it is part of those agreements of the far right to deliver our Essequibo territory, which is not going to happen because of the Essequibo is of Venezuela, and it is a national consensus to defend the Essequibo. And of those electoral maps published by the far right wing, all results, as it was shown by President of the National Assembly, there are plain percentages, the same percentages in all states, 63% in all states. In all states, plain results, even results, and those are the results of them. These are not the results of the National Electoral Council, and so this causes a kind of hysteria. There is an international hysteria about the tally sheets. They can just create a series in Netflix about the tally sheets in Venezuela. I apologize for the to the French ambassador, because even the Olympics are stained by the tally sheets of Venezuela, and the technological imperialism are against the public powers of Venezuela, in which there are the following irregularities. Deceased people are voting. Among them, a beloved journalist who was murdered by the far right, Ricardo Duran. He voted, and it is a kind of mockery also. But among others, we are receiving the claims, the allegations of similar situations in which people say, my dad is dead and he appeared to be voting. My mom passed away years ago and she appears there on their fake tally sheets at the website that they intend to substitute from the real tally sheets of the electoral power. And they don't have the data about witnesses, about the members of electoral tables, and those are all even figures. You will see worms and broken sheets and illegitimate tally sheets, and there are lots of elements, but here without the signature and without data of the operator. There you can see it without data, and all these tally sheets without data. There you see it, and they are underlining without data of witnesses. It is interesting because they are here. They are rendering accounts before the Supreme Court of Justice that they don't have witnesses, but the witnesses are part of the real tally sheets, not the fraudulent, not those forged or mutilated. Their tally sheets without the data of table members, without operators of machines, without witnesses of operating machines, and that's the tally sheet of zero start. We have to make an effort to disclose it, because the international media outlets are just disclosing and broadcasting these fraudulent tally sheets, which are not from those real ones by the Electoral Council. We have invited all international media outlets if they want to publish the real truth about what's been happening in Venezuela. If these media outlets want to publish what's been occurring in Venezuela, then the clear signature, the even signatures. There you see the fake signatures. Please focus the camera on that. Zoom the camera. Yes. The illegible tally sheets. How can we see the results if they are just cut? There we have the case of a passed away citizen. There, when they begin to appear, it was the beginning of appearing the cases of passed aways. In that website, that every day changes data, and these irregularities appear, and motivated that the Attorney General of the Republic open a file about this website, which intends to substitute the official mechanism of disclosing the results by the Electoral Council. Well, now you see that on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, the far right candidate González Urrutia and his accomplice María Corina Machado called on violence in Venezuela, a vandalizing violence, a criminal violence. They paid off criminals as it happened in 2014, in 2017, for criminals to vandalize schools, health centers, public transportation, at what they called peaceful protests. They burned down cars of anyone, of motorbike, and they were on motorbikes with fierce despair caused by drugs, and that was determined by the blood and other tests. Those detained persons are confessing who they paid them. These people have some U.S. phone numbers. As they were receiving instructions, it seems that the United States wanted to take over those the control of those criminals, because the phone numbers are there from Colombia, from Peru, from the United States, and those confessions of those who have been detained, who destroyed monuments and statues, very symbolic in our country. Before that situation, and before this barbaric fraud, savage fraud, unprecedented fraud, and I said savage because of the math, because if it is something accurate, it is math. That's why they said gods speak for mathematics. And President Nicolás Maduro made a decision of responsibility before the country and within the framework of our constitution, the Constitution of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. And the president presented before the Supreme Court of Justice with a contentious appeal to clarify the electoral situation generated by this fraud, by this cyber attack, by this massive cyber attack, and he came to the Supreme Court of Justice to preserve the constitutional order, to protect the public powers, and safeguard peace and tranquility of the people of Venezuela. And I am going to read two articles, fundamental articles that sustained and substantiate the contentious appeal before the Supreme Court of Justice. Article 297, the contentious electoral jurisdiction will be executed by the National Electoral Council, and it must be clarified, this situation must be clarified, and that these fraudulent tally sheets are not the mechanism, the official mechanism of the National Electoral Council, that the website of the far right, of the Venezuelan far right, supported directly by Washington, is not an official mechanism to totalize and proclaim which is in charge the National Electoral Council, the public powers of our country, the Electoral Council, the judicial power, because what we have seen beyond an electoral affair, it is a coup d'etat that has been curbed, that has been stopped with the wisdom of the Venezuelan people, and because of President Nicolás Maduro requested the Supreme Court of Justice within the framework of Article 233 that says this constitution won't lose its validity if it were abrogated by any means different from it. And all citizens invested, as the case of President Nicolás Maduro, head of state and government, or citizen in office, will have the duty to collaborate in the establishment of its effective applicability. And so, to be clarified that the terrible fraud that committed, that generates individual responsibility, personal responsibility, and that they must respond to our country, to the they must be brought to justice. And on August 2, the Supreme Court of Justice summoned the former presidential candidates about this investigation, and from those 10 candidates, the 9 have been presented, and the far right former candidate said said he wouldn't recognize the results, and he just created a website to publish his own results. And he said that he would publish his own tally sheets. He didn't recognize the electoral power, and he didn't appear before the Supreme Court of Justice disregarding the public power of Venezuela. The representatives of the parties that supported the far-right candidate attended on the Wednesday, and they said they didn't have to inform about any tally sheets. And therefore, you understand why I said it is being generated a kind of international hysteria, because these fake tally sheets, this fraud has been, they have been saying that there have been irregularities, and the U.S. government has been directing this coup d'etat in Venezuela. They planned it, and they know what is happening at 4 p.m. and at 5 p.m. That's why the faces at the campaign command of the far-right candidates, those suffering faces, because all knew about. I'm not gonna say further names to not compromise them. Authorities from other countries recognize that the president Nicolás Maduro have won the elections, and from there they activated from the United States. Leopoldo López, Lester Toledo were in Washington, and they intended to stop the process of transmission for not having results and impose these fraudulent results published on the website and sponsored by Amazon and other transnationals. And we have a preliminary meeting, and we warned there that this candidate, González Urrutia, responsible of violence, that violence lived between July 29 and August 2, those passed away, those victims from that violence, he is the responsible alongside his accomplice. We warned that they wouldn't recognize the results and they would provide their own results. Let's make this clear. And here too, we wanted that the international outlets be here, national outlets be here, and we said they wouldn't recognize those results, the results of the elections, and we warned your capitals that don't dare to repeat the outrageous event of Juan Guaidó, to recognize, to proclaim someone who has not been a byproduct of the will of the Venezuelan people. We warn that here, ambassadors of all our continent and officials of Africa, Asia, Middle East. That warning, we made that warning. And let's reflect about this what has been meant this aggression against Venezuela. The damages, the social damages caused to the Venezuelan people, the economic damages against the Venezuelan corps in Venezuela, and all those damages that the countries have been living by product of this process, of this irrational process of wanting to disregard legitimate governments and making up stories to expose the far right and to justify the far right to deliver our domestic resources, but mainly the meaning of the historical identity of Venezuela from his founding fathers, Simón Bolívar, Sucre, our heroes, our heroines that have been leaving some legacy, some important legacy to humanity in the construction of a model of welfare, with justice, with social equity, the legacy of Bolívar to the humanitarian right, and this has generated a lot of envy in hegemonic centers, and it is this is a continuation of the historical contest between the Bolivarism and the Monroe's followers. And we said the doors of Venezuela are open for the welfare, for cooperation, and the Maduro's hands are embrace those countries who want to cooperate, to be friends with Venezuela. and we stand by the dignity of Venezuela, the right for the future, and sovereignty. Thank you very much.
We were listening to the Vice President of Venezuela. This is an encounter with the diplomatic body that is happening right now, the Venezuelan president. And as we were saying, we were listening to the Vice President of Delcy Rodriguez in a diplomatic meeting with the diplomatic body. She was mentioning that of course, there were a lot of attacks that were targeting the process of the July 28th elections, and she did a run-through of the whole entire process from the beginning of the process that began with the signing of the agreement to acknowledge the election process, to which the far-right opposition did not come to. She also did a rundown of the actions that followed through in the election day and afterwards, and also she showed evidence of the inconsistency of the so-called evidence that the far right tried to pass as telesheets but have failed to present before the Supreme Court. We'll come back with further information on the election process and also on the Supreme Court investigation into the entire process on upcoming news brief. Stay tuned with teleSUR English.